What's up, Duval? It's your favorite former Jag, Bucky Brooks, and this is Believe in Jags, a podcast dedicated to everything Jacksonville Jaguars. And we are excited today because now that we are at the end of the offseason program, we have a little time heading into the summer before we get to training camp. We want to use that time to really do some positional previews so that before we get to training camp, we know everything about the players that are in these different position groups. And what better position to start than quarterbacks? Quarterback is the most important position on the team. We are blessed to have one of the top quarterbacks in the game in Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence just recently signed a deal, 5-year, $275 million with a bunch of guaranteed money that ensures that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the quarterback in the fold for a long time. But it's not just Trevor Lawrence in the room. We have C.J. Beathard, a veteran quarterback who has been in the Jaguars for some time, had an opportunity to fill in last year, kept the team on the winning track. So he brings value to the team. But the new addition is Mac Jones, former first-round pick of the New England Patriots, was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the offseason. He will compete with C.J. Beathard for the number 2 spot and really fortify the depth in the quarterback room. When we think about the quarterback room in general, we have seen the league change. The league went from being a league where you had 3 quarterbacks. One of those guys would be an emergency quarterback. You have a veteran backup or a young player that was developing that you eventually wanted to groom to be a starter. And then you had the marquee player as your QB1. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, right to all top fights in the UFC, MMA, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus. The league then went through a phase where you only had 2 quarterbacks maybe on the roster. Teams were trying to use that last spot for a positional player to see if they could increase the depth overall on the squad. Well, things changed the last couple of years with the expansion of the practice squad rosters, where now you can have 16 guys on practice squads. Teams are kind of trying to find different ways to manipulate the quarterback roster spot to make sure that their team has a chance. And when you've seen so many teams have to cycle through quarterbacks, I want to say last year we had over 66 quarterbacks that started in games. Last year, teams are beginning to recognize that you need to have multiple quarterbacks, multiple starting caliber quarterbacks on your team, because an injury to the QB1 can decimate a team's playoff chances if you don't have depth in place. I believe the moves that you've seen the Jaguars kind of handle over the last few years have been designed to make sure that they always have a quarterback that is capable of getting them over the hump in the fold. Well, let's talk about the quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick in 2021. He was a guy that was hailed and celebrated as maybe the best quarterback prospect since John Elway, Andrew Luck, and those things. While he hasn't quite played up to those lofty expectations, he has been a really, really good football player for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it resulted in him signing that blockbuster deal last week that keeps him in the fold past 2030, 2031, where he'll have an opportunity to do great things in Jacksonville. We talk about the contract. The contract guarantees, look at $55 million annually on that deal. He's one of the top paid quarterbacks. He can rival Joe Burrow for that title. But more importantly, it suggests that the Jaguars believe that this guy is one that they can vision having the entire team have confetti fall on their shoulders as a Super Bowl champion. When you go back and you dig through his career, he's been pretty solid throughout his career. Had a rough rookie season, but part of that is due to the Urban Meyer experience, where he didn't necessarily get the proper coaching, the proper support to be a guy that plays like a franchise quarterback. Things began to change immediately when Doug Peterson arrives in 2022. Trevor Lawrence has put up back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons. His touchdown to interception ratio is 46-22. He's led the team to a playoff win. And if not for injuries, who knows how good this team could have been last year when Trevor Lawrence had to kind of really grind through some bumps and bruises to finish the year. as the starting quarterback. And even though the team success wasn't there the last part of the season, Trevor endeared himself to his teammates by showing the grit and the toughness and the fortitude to play through those injuries. When you are a franchise quarterback, you're expected to be there whenever the ball is teed up. And he, for the most part, has always been there for the team. So you feel great about those things when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. You feel great about the intangibles. You feel good about the toughness, the IQ, the love for the game, the passion. All of those things have been terrific. The performance has been pretty solid the past 2 years. You talk about 2022, people were just raving about Trevor Lawrence as the next coming. At that point, he was probably a fringe top 5 player at the position. The team had a great come from behind win in which he had the worst game of his career, 4 interceptions early against the Chargers, but bounced back and found a way to win the game. We displayed a lot of poise, a lot of moxie, a lot of grit, a lot of confidence in his own abilities. Those things were positive. Last year, took a step back. Some of that was really due to the fact that he got injured. When you look at the way this team was performing, how they were rolling prior to his injury, look, there was a lot of things to be positive. And this is saying that he wasn't even playing at his best. Had some costly turnovers, had some red zone issues that popped up, wasn't on the same page with the new number 1 receiver at the time in Calvin Ridley. But the team at one point was sitting at 8-3, top seed in the AFC before they faltered down the stretch and found themselves on the outside looking in when it came to the postseason. Trevor Lawrence, in studying his play, Trevor Lawrence has been really good in terms of being a quick rhythm passer that can get the ball out of his hands. Does a really good job of understanding the concepts that are being utilized to really unlock his talents and to put the players around him in a position to really make plays. When we think about the weapons around him, the wide receiver core with Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram kind of sharing the marquee as the number ones, you will see a lot of the balls that Trevor Lawrence throw, the primaries, go inside the numbers, which is, look, that's standard. That is probably maybe the biggest vulnerability of most defenses is finding the middle of the field right inside the hashes. He works that with those fellas in terms of Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. On the outside this year, you have Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis that will give them the vertical playmakers, the guys that can take the top off the defense, guys that can make the big plays down the field. That should create more big play opportunities for this Jaguars offense and Trevor Lawrence. When you study Trevor certainly has the talent and the range to make those deep ball throws. Last year just didn't connect on enough of those throws to back defenders off. And if you are able to back defenders off, it then allows the Jags to get to their dink and dunk passing game, which is what they have utilized to win a lot of games. Short crossers, quick throws, bubble screens, things that are within 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. That has kind of been the goal of the passing game, to allow Amon-Ra St. to allow Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram to really be able to get after it in terms of some of these catch and run plays. When I look at the backfield and Travis Etienne and how Travis Etienne can also enhance what Trevor wants to do as a passer, this should be an opportunity for Trevor to really not only go over 4,000 yards for the 3rd year in a row, but this is a chance for him to go from good player to great player in terms of the quarterback landscape. One of the reasons why I'm optimistic is in looking at the call and play caller from Doug Peterson in 2022 to Press Taylor in 2023 and looking at the fall off, I think you will see Doug Peterson have a bigger hand in the offense as it relates to how the game is structured. Don't know if he's going to call the game, even though I would advocate for him to call the game because he's so good at it. He's won a Super Bowl being a play caller. I would say that he being heavy-handed in the planning and scripting of the game plan should allow the Jags to get back to some of the concepts that really work well for Trevor that first year. When you go back and you look at 2022 tape, there were a lot of, I would say, shallow crossing routes and cousins and spinoffs of shallow crossing routes that really helped Trevor not only identify coverage quickly, but make a series of high completion percentage throws that allowed him to get his confidence up, allowed this offense to stay on schedule, and really helped the Jaguars march the ball down the field against any opponent. We need to see more of those concepts return to the playbook, because if they get back to doing the horizontal passing game, it then will force teams to stretch from sideline to sideline, which will then give Trevor an opportunity to push the ball down the field Those things also remove people from the box, which creates more room for Travis Etienne to run. And so it becomes a win-win for everybody on the offense when they're able to kind of really make this intermediate passing game work. As we continue to dig down into the passing game and why it works and why it should continue to work under Trevor Lawrence is the upgrades in personnel around Trevor should allow him to flourish. Gabe Davis being a big time playmaker guy who has really put up huge numbers throughout his career 27 touchdowns, significant playmaking potential, big time plays on his resume where you see this guy average a ridiculous amount of yards per catch, like over 16 yards per catch he's been averaging throughout his career. So you love when you have him on the outside of Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. Defensives have to step back. If not, the deep ball is going to go over top of them. And adding Brian Thomas Jr., you now have doubled up on that vertical playmaker. You have Gabe Davis on one side, Brian Thomas Jr. on the other side. Both guys are vertical playmakers. Man, they can create all kinds of problems in terms of dominating their one-on-one matchup. And Brian Thomas Jr., you get a very talented playmaker, a gifted player with a basketball background that will make life easier for Trevor Lawrence, much like T. Higgins made life easy for him during his collegiate days at Clemson. Now, as we see this offense being built around Trevor, the natural assumption is that, okay, this is a perfect opportunity for him to take his game to the next level. After you get the bag like he's gotten, he has to do that. That is the expectation. We will judge him on a different scale based on how much money he's getting paid. The great thing I would say is anyone who's been around Trevor, anyone who has watched Trevor from afar, they can appreciate the maturity that he's always displayed. That maturity gives him a chance to handle all of the outside noise that will ultimately filter and seep into the locker room. Can he prove each and every week that he is a $50+ million player quarterback, that he does deserve to be in the $50 million club based on not only the potential, but eventually the production that he should start putting up from this season on? Big weight, a lot of pressure on number 16 to play, I would say, at a Pro Bowl level at worst. But that's why you pay him the big bucks. You're paying Trevor the big bucks because you believe not only individually he can get this offense to the next level, but collectively he has the right stuff as a leader, as a face of the franchise, to get the rest of the guys to follow his lead and to make that jump into a team that not only makes the postseason tournament, but they win a few games in the postseason tournament where the league has to acknowledge the presence of the Jaguars. So after Trevor Lawrence, you now naturally, the pecking order would be C.J. Beathard. C.J. Beathard, longtime veteran, spent most of his formative years with the San Francisco 49ers, made his way over a couple years ago to be a backup quarterback, and he has kind of been solid in that role. Had a start last year where he won a game. He has been very, very, I would say, prepared in terms of being prepared without having to play, getting the mental reps, getting all the stuff from the film room, being able to take detailed notes to be able to understand not only what you're doing, but what everyone around you is assigned to do. That's been a big part of C.J. Beathard's, I would say, value and importance to this team. When he steps into the huddle, he not only knows exactly what everyone should be doing, but there's a calming presence about him as a veteran quarterback who has some pelts on the wall. We talk about 32 games that he's kind of made appearances in. Even though the numbers aren't jaw-dropping, look, he has like almost 4,000 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He's a serviceable backup quarterback. And when surrounded by good talent, when he has a coach that really is willing to manage his emotions by being able to just keep him on the same page, make sure he knows exactly what he's doing, C.J. Beathard has been solid in that. And not only has C.J. Beathard been solid in terms of the emotional stability that he brings to the team, his maturity in the QB room has certainly helped Trevor, I would say, continue to get better as he becomes more comfortable as a QB1. In C.J. Beathard, what you're getting, though, is a manager, a guy who can get the offense from point A to point B, but he can't necessarily create on his own. If C.J. Beathard is in the game, it is on everybody else to take their game up a notch to be able to allow this offense to stay on track. When CJ has played, he's done a really good job of not getting outside of himself by staying within, by painting within the lines and allowing the playmakers to work. You can win games with CJ Beathard, but I don't think over a long stretch you want CJ Beathard to be that guy because there's some limitations to his arm talent and what you're able to do with him on the field. The deep ball tends to go away. It becomes more half-court basketball, more horizontal plays than vertical plays. It works for the wide receivers to have, but you don't maximize their potential output when CJ Beathard is in the game. Veteran, has a role, very valuable, but I can understand why this team was excited to make the trade for Mac Jones. Mac Jones has been having the time of his life since coming back home to Jacksonville. It's his hometown. He's living it up. He's been on Instagram hanging out with Mike Jones and doing all that. And Mac Jones has really let his personality come through. When you go to practice, there are little things like Mac Jones running a touchdown and doing the gritty, Mac Jones dancing and bebopping, having a lot of energy. A lot of the things that people talked about negatively about Mac Jones, those things haven't shown up yet in Jacksonville. He's been the consummate teammate. He's brought energy to the practice each and every day. He is competing not necessarily against Trevor, but against himself and his own standards while also going toe-to-toe with the defense. Those things are refreshing. Those things have added life and energy to the practices, but it's also allowed us to get a chance to see what he brings as a potential quarterback, what he brings as a potential super sub as a fill-in starting quarterback that may have to handle 3 to 5 games if Trevor Lawrence suffered an injury that put him on the sidelines. In Mac Jones, what you have is a former Pro Bowl player, a guy when his rookie season completed over 67% of his passes, had 3,800 yards, had a really, really solid touchdown to interception ratio of 23 touchdowns against 13 interceptions. That's winning football, which is why he made the Pro Bowl. If he's able to give you any of that as a substitute teacher for Trevor Lawrence, if Trevor Lawrence has to miss the game, man, you're excited about that. You're not only excited about what he can give you, you're excited about how you can still attack with a backup quarterback like that in the building. And Mac Jones, when you watch all the quarterbacks, and particularly when you watch the battle that will be between CJ Beathard and Mac Jones, to me it's really, really obvious that Mac Jones has superior arm talent. He puts the ball on time, on target. He does a really good job of doing all the things that you want to see a quarterback do in shorts, while also having a little different swagger and confidence than his predecessor in CJ Beathard. And Beathard, what you see is someone who can connect the dots, someone who's going to color inside the lines, someone who's going to do it exactly how the coaches draw it up, but you don't get any extra stuff from it. And even though Mac Jones doesn't have that athleticism that some have, he has more athleticism than CJ Beathard, and that allows him to kind of churn out and pick up some of those hidden yards on scrambles. It allows him to maybe work himself out of certain jams, even though his game doesn't necessarily fit that dual threat playmaker that a lot of offensive coordinators want in that position. What Mac Jones's experience does, though, is it gives the Jaguars another solid starter in the event that Trevor Lawrence suffers an injury that keeps him sidelined for a week or two. It also gives the Jaguars someone that is really interesting in terms of maybe being a long-term answer, either as a number 2 or maybe a sign and bring back and eventually kind of develop him until you can trade him off and get something in return. For Mac Jones, this situation has been great because you get a chance to play in your hometown. You got a bunch of quarterback whispers in your ear every day, Doug Peterson, Press Taylor, Mike McCarthy. You have seemingly found your joy of the game within the practice structure in Jacksonville. And now it's about delivering in-game action. And look, if Mac Jones tears it up in the preseason, it's a win-win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It not only piques the interest of others who may be interested in signing him, but what it does is it makes the Jaguars feel good about who they have in place as their QB2, QB3, who they potentially have around the team as either someone you want to sign in to maybe be a franchise quarterback or someone you want to bring in as a competitive situation, where those things can be enhanced based on what Mac Jones does in Jacksonville. I love it. I love the possibilities. I love the fact that Trevor now that he's secure in his contract, Trevor has a guy behind him that can push him, because no matter what Trevor says or how he walks in, you got to respect Mac Jones as a first-round pick. And if Mac Jones was picked in the first round by somebody, that means collectively the league pretty much thought that he was a first-round pick. You can't go wrong kicking the tires on a guy with that kind of talent, given the state of the NFL and given the importance of the quarterback position. And having a conversation with Doug Peterson, we were reflecting back on our Green Bay days, and it just brought me to a memory that Ron Wolf and Mike Holmgren would always do. They would always bring in former quarterbacks that were very coveted, hot commodities, former first-round picks that they would kind of use as reclamation projects, guys that they would kind of kick the tires on, see if they could pour into him and see if they could get something out of him down the line, either as a valuable backup or as someone that becomes a trade commodity. You invest in the position because you're hoping that it not only helps you in the short term, maybe win a game, but maybe in the long term, being able to flip it into a pick and those things. Well, now with Mac Jones, a former first rounder who has been really good throughout OTAs and minicamps, maybe you have that opportunity to not only keep the Jaguars playing at a high level if number 16 goes down, but eventually having the kind of value that you can move on from him if he stays and maybe if he resigns, and then eventually you trade him away to get something back to address another position of need. Going into the 2024 season, I would say one of the positions that I have the least amount of concern about would be quarterback. Really confident in what the Jaguars have done in terms of backstopping the quarterback position. Mac Jones coming in behind Trevor Lawrence, assuming that he beats out C.J. Beathard for the number 2 spot. I think the Jaguars have a winning recipe and a winning formula for being able to continue to win if anything goes wrong with number 16. So as a team builder, that's how you want to do it. That's how you should want to do it. Trent Baalke and those guys have done a really good job of pulling it off. And so going into it, quarterback room is really solid in Jacksonville. So that's the pod for the day. We talked about the quarterback positions and all the good things that could happen when you got QB1, QB2, and QB3 in the fold. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Be sure to tell a friend to join us on the Believe in Jaguars community. Make sure you check out the Believe Network on YouTube. Make sure you see the Believe channels and stuff on Fubo, all the great content, not only that we're talking about the Jaguars, but other teams and your friends who follow other teams and those things. Make them check it out. Make them see the pods that we have going. It's been a really great experience. Hopefully the community is growing. I see you guys tweeting at me. I see you guys representing the brand and kind of putting out there to have your friends come on board as we continue to get closer to the season kicking off. We're going to have some cool things going. Make sure you come back and check out the pod. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Believe in Jaguars.